Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to unpack a really fundamental shift in how the top real asset firms are thinking about GRESB. And here's the spoiler. It's not really about improving a score. It's about completely rethinking your operations from the ground up. Let's dive in.
So let me just start by asking you this, straight up. Does GRESB reporting in your organization feel like this annual last-minute fire drill? You know, this frantic rush to pull data from everywhere, trying to make spreadsheets match up, explaining all the gaps? If that sounds even a little bit familiar, you are definitely not alone. But it's a cycle that the truly high-performing firms have figured out how to break.
And this slide just nails the difference. It's really a tale of two approaches. On one side, you've got the reporting-led method. The whole focus is just on finding the data, which leads to that yearly scramble and scores that are, well, they're all over the place. But on the other side, you have the operations-driven approach. And here, the focus is totally different. It's about making better decisions day in and day out with ESG baked right into the normal routines. And that's what leads to those steady, multi-year gains. So let's talk about that first approach. Why does that reporting-led strategy just stall out? I mean, it feels like you're doing something, right? But more often than not, it's a dead end. Let's break down what we call the annual reporting trap.
Okay, this is so important because it gets to the real damage this approach causes. First, your improvements just hit a wall, and they hit it fast. Why? Because good reporting can't fake good operations for long. Second, your scores get super unpredictable because the ESG processes aren't actually part of how the business runs. And third, and this one is huge, your internal credibility just tanks. The actual operations teams start to see ESG as this annoying external thing, not a real tool that helps them do their job better.
So how do the leaders get out of this trap? Well, they make a really fundamental pivot in how they think. It's a shift away from just collecting a bunch of metrics to actively listening for real, live operational signals. This quote just gets right to the heart of it. The top performers aren't drowning themselves in more and more data. They're creating better signals. Think about it this way. They're not just asking, did we collect the energy data? They're asking, did that weird spike in energy use last Tuesday trigger an immediate work order to figure out what happened? It's all about turning that passive data into active, useful intelligence. And this brings us to the most crucial point of all. For the very best firms, a high GRESB score is not the goal. The goal is to achieve true operational excellence. The high score, that's just the natural result, the outcome of running a really disciplined, resilient, and efficient operation. It's a reflection of the work, not the work itself. All right, so that's the big mindset shift. Now let's get into the playbook. How does this actually translate into concrete actions? How do these high performers manage to embed ESG into the day-to-day grind of managing their assets? Well, it really boils down to three incredibly powerful changes. First up, ownership. Accountability doesn't just live at the corporate headquarters, it's pushed down to the asset managers and the facility managers on the ground. Second is cadence. ESG is not some once-a-year report. It is on the agenda in the monthly asset reviews, right there next to financial performance. And third, feedback. When something looks off, an action is triggered right away. That feedback loop is closed in a matter of weeks, not after the next GRSB cycle a year from now. Now, of course, these operational changes can't just happen in a vacuum. They absolutely need a support system. And that system is governance, but probably not governance in the way you're used to thinking about it. I absolutely love this quote because it's so active. It captures the difference perfectly. We're not talking about some dusty binder of policy sitting on a shelf. In these firms, governance is an active, dynamic control system that is directly shaping decisions about money, about risk, and about strategy. And this table here shows you exactly what that looks like in the real world. Under a control system approach, ESG isn't just some feel-good story you stick in an annual report. When you're allocating capital, ESG data is actually adjusting your financial models. When you're thinking about selling an asset, future climate risk is weighed just as heavily as its current yield. And when you're planning upgrades, they get prioritized based on fixing real ESG performance gaps, not just because it's on the maintenance schedule. It's proactive. So what about technology? What's its role in all this? Well, it's a supporting role, but its purpose is completely different here. The goal is not to create fancy dashboards for the annual report. The goal is to use tech to surface anomalies in real time, to help teams prioritize what they need to fix first, and then to track whether those fixes actually worked. The tech itself is often pretty modest, but it is deeply, deeply embedded in the day-to-day workflow. Look, making this kind of operational shift is hard work. There's no sugarcoating it. So what's the payoff? Why go through all the trouble? Well, it usually starts with trying to fix a score, but it ends with creating a genuine, long-term competitive advantage. This timeline tells a story we've seen again and again. It often starts with a score shock, a really bad result that acts as a huge wake-up call. That shock then triggers the hard work of the operational shift over the next year or two. And then you see the score rebound. But by year 3 and beyond, it's not even about the score anymore. ESG performance becomes a true differentiator for the business.
So, what do we really mean when we say competitive advantage? It's that moment when you can walk into a room with investors and your ESG performance isn't a separate side conversation. It's the proof. It's a clear, unmistakable signal that your firm has superior operational discipline and that your assets are built to be more resilient for the long haul.
So let's bring all of this together with one final and I think really crucial thought. After going through this entire journey, the most mature, the highest performing firms, they reach a pretty fascinating conclusion. They stop optimizing for GRESB. Instead, their entire focus shifts to what actually matters. They optimize for genuine, real-world asset resilience. They pour all their energy into the real work of reducing costs, managing future risks, and creating lasting value. And they simply let the score reflect the results of all that hard work and operational excellence. Which really brings us back to that first question, but in a new light. When you look at your GRESB score, what does it truly reflect? An annual reporting drill, or the resilient, high-performing operation that you've actually built?